day 80 of our 365-day Bible read. Today we're going to be reading from the Old Testament, Joshua chapters 4, 5, and 6. And then we'll do the Bible study for Joshua chapters 4, 5, and 6. And then we'll go on over to the New Testament and we're going to read Luke chapter 2, verse 1 through 24, and then we'll finish Luke chapter 2 tomorrow, and we'll do the Bible study for Luke chapter 2 tomorrow once we finish. I am following the year reading Bible schedule from esv.org. If you wanted to look on there, I did not start from April's date, which is like when we started doing our Bible readings. I started from January 1st's date. That way I could start from the beginning of the Old Testament and the beginning of the New Testament and read straight through. So, today's date that we're on their schedule is, let me see, we are on March 21st's date. March 21st is the date that we're on the schedule that's on esv.org. And yes, so basically, whatever day we're on, you can just start from January 1st and then count down that amount of days. And that's the date that will basically be on their schedule. So, yep, if you wanted to look ahead or anything like that, or follow along or know what we're going to be reading like already before I even start the live, if you're following along. So, yes, but okay, so we're going to get started with Joshua chapter 4. And these chapters are not too long today. They're pretty short. I think Joshua chapter 6 is like the longest chapter of them, of the three, but they're not really long at all. So, okay, let's get started. Joshua chapter 4. 12 memorial stones from the Jordan. When all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Take 12 men from the people, from each tribe a man, and command them, saying, 'Take 12 stones from here out of the midst of the Jordan, from the very place where the priests' feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you, and lay them down in the place where you lodged tonight.'" Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, "Pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask in time to come, 'What do those stones mean to you?' then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever." And the people of Israel did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, just as the Lord told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the covenant had stood. And they are there to this day. For the priests bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to tell the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. The people passed over in haste, and when all the people had finished passing over, the ark of the Lord and the priests passed over before the people. The sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh passed over armed before the people of Israel, as Moses had told them. About 40,000 ready for war passed over before the Lord for battle to the plains of Jericho. On that day, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they stood in awe of him, just as they had stood in awe of Moses all the days of his life. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Command the priests bearing the ark of the testimony to come up out of the Jordan." So Joshua commanded the priests, "Come up out of the Jordan." And when the priest bearing the ark of the covenant of the Lord came up from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up on dry ground, the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed all its banks as before. The people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they encamped at Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. And he said to the people of Israel, "When your children ask their fathers in times to come, 'What do these stones mean?' then you shall let your children know, Israel passed over this Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan for you until you passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up for us until we passed over, so that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever." All right, so that was Joshua chapter 4, and we're now going to do the Bible study for Joshua chapter 4, and then we'll go back and read Joshua 5 and 6, and we'll do the Bible study for them. Okay, I am out of breath. Okay. Joshua chapter 4 Bible study. It's only 2 questions long. All right, Joshua chapter 4 Bible study. What did the people take out of the river as a memorial? 12 stones were taken from the Jordan River for a memorial. Where did Joshua set up this memorial? In the place Israel was to lodge, Gilgal, they set up the stones as a memorial. Okay, that was really short. That was the Bible study for Joshua chapter 4. And we're now going back to the Old Testament, and we're going to read Joshua chapter 5, and then we'll do the Bible study, and then Joshua chapter 6, and then we'll do the Bible study. Alrighty, Joshua chapter 5. The new generation circumcised. As soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people of Israel until they had crossed over, their hearts melted, and there was no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the sons of Israel a second time." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at Gibeath Haraloth. And this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the males of the people who came out of Egypt, all the men of war, had died in the wilderness on the way after they had come out of Egypt. Though all the people who came out had been circumcised, yet all the people who were born in the way in the wilderness, yet all the people who were born on the way in the wilderness after they had come out of Egypt had not been circumcised. For the people of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the The men of war who came out of Egypt perished because they did not obey the voice of the Lord. The Lord swore to them that he would not let them see the land that the Lord had sworn to their fathers to give to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. So it was their children, whom he raised up in their place, that Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. When the circumcising of the whole nation was finished, they remained in their places in the camp until they were healed. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you." And so the name of that place is called Gilgal till this day. First Passover in Canaan. While the people of Israel were encamped at Gilgal, they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month in the evening of the plains of Jericho. And the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate of the produce of the land, unleavened cakes and parched grain. And the manna ceased the day after they ate of the produce of the land. And there was no longer manna for the people of Israel, but they ate of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. The commander of the Lord's army. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" And he said, "No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, "What does my Lord say to his servant?" And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, "Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. All right, so that was Joshua chapter 5, and we're now going to do the Bible study for Joshua chapter 5, and then we'll come back to the Old Testament and we'll read Joshua chapter 6 and then do the Bible study for that. Hello, you who have joined. Welcome, welcome. All right, Joshua chapter 5, Bible study. I'm out of breath, excuse me. Joshua chapter 5 Bible study. What had the people not done for 40 years? The people had neglected circumcising their sons for the past 40 years. What did the people stop receiving after they ate of the produce of the land? The manna ceased to form on the ground once the people ate of the produce of the land. Who did Joshua see by Jericho? Joshua saw an angel of the Lord, the commander of the Lord's army, standing by Jericho. Alrighty, so that was the Bible study for Joshua chapter 5, and we're now going to read Joshua chapter 6. Joshua chapter 6. The fall of Jericho. Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city once. Thus shall you do for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns. Of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day, you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, When you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up, everyone straight before him. So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of horn, ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said to the people, go forward, march around the city, and let the armed men pass on before the ark of the Lord. And just as Joshua had commanded the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward, blowing the trumpets, with the ark of the covenant of the Lord following them. The armed men were walking before the priests who were blowing the trumpets, and the rear guard was walking after the ark, while the trumpets blew continually. But Joshua commanded the people, you shall not shout or make your voice heard, neither shall any word go out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shall shout. So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the city, going about it once. And they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. And the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord walked on, and they blew the trumpets continually. And the armed men were walking before them, and the rear guard was walking after the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. And the second day they marched around the city once and returned into the camp. So they did for 6 days. On the 7th day they rose early at the dawn of day and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priest had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the city, and the city and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But you, keep yourselves from the things devoted to destruction, lest you have devoted them. You take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel a thing for destruction and bring trouble upon it. But all silver and gold and every vessel of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. Then they devoted all in the city to destruction, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys, with the edge of the sword. But to the 2 men who had spied out the land, Joshua said, go into the prostitute's house and bring out from there the woman and all who belong to her, as you swore to her. So the young men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and mother and brothers and all who belonged to her. And they brought all her relatives and put them outside the camp of Israel. And they burned the city with fire and everything in it. Only the silver and gold and the vessels of bronze and of iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. But Rahab the prostitute and her father's household and all who belonged to her, Joshua saved alive. And she has lived in Israel to this day because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Joshua laid an oath on them at that time, saying, "Cursed before the Lord be the man who rises up and rebuilds this city, Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn shall he lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest son shall he set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. All right, so that was Joshua chapter 6. And we are now going to do the Bible study for Joshua chapter 6, and then we'll go on over to the New Testament and we'll read Luke chapter 2, verse 1 through 24. All right, Joshua chapter 6 Bible study. It is only 3 questions long. Okay, Joshua chapter 6 Bible study. How was Joshua to capture Jericho? The men were to march around the city once every day for 6 days, sounding trumpets. On the 7th day, they were to circle the city 7 times, blowing trumpets, and shout out loud on the last march. What was the only thing Israel kept from Jericho? Israel took the silver, gold, bronze, and iron and put them in the treasury of the house of the Lord. What became of Rahab? Rahab and her family were spared and dwelled with Israel. All right, so that was the Bible study for Joshua chapter 6, and we're now on over to the New Testament, and we're going to read Luke chapter 2, verse 1 through 24, and then we'll finish Luke chapter 2 tomorrow, and we'll do the Bible study for it tomorrow. Okay, Luke chapter 2. Okay, the birth of Jesus Christ. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first generation when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judah, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was out of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. The shepherds and the angels. And in the same region there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were filled with great fear. And the angel said to them, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign for you. You will find a baby wrapped in swaddling cloths and lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among those with whom he is pleased." When the angels went away from them into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has made known to us." And they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in the manger. And when they saw it, they made known the saying that had been told them concerning this child. And all who heard it wondered, and all who heard it wondered at what the shepherds told them. But Mary treasured up all these things, pondering them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, as it had been told them. And at the end of 8 days, when he was circumcised, he was called Jesus, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. Jesus presented at the temple. And when the time came for their purification according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every male who first opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. And to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. All right, so we're stopping at Luke we're stopping at Luke chapter 2 verse 24. So we just read Luke chapter 2 verse 1 through 24, and then we're going to finish Luke chapter 2 tomorrow, and we'll do the Bible study for it tomorrow. I am following the year reading Bible schedule from esv.org, and they split up some of the chapters of the New Testament because there's less books in the Bible of the New Testament than there is in the Old Testament. So they want it to be that we'll be able to read both the Old and the New Testament every day for this entire year that we're reading on this Bible challenge. But if we didn't split the chapters up of the New Testament, we would finish the New Testament way before we finish the Old Testament, since there's less books in the New Testament. So yeah, so that's why like we're stopping there halfway of Luke chapter 2, and we're gonna pick back up tomorrow to finish, and then we'll do the Bible study for Luke chapter 2 tomorrow. So yes, that completes our day. A recap of what we did from the Old Testament. We read Joshua chapters 4, 5, and 6. And then we did the Bible study for Joshua chapters 4, 5, and 6. And then we went on over to the New Testament and we read Luke chapter 2, verse 1 through 24. And we're going to finish Luke chapter 2 tomorrow, and we'll do the Bible study for it. So yes, I love you guys. God loves you. You matter. You are important. You are beautiful. You are enough. You are worthy and you are valuable. And I love you, and I'm excited for you on this journey. And I will see you guys tomorrow for day 81. Enjoy the rest of your night.